Why keep anxiety when you can help it fade away with the Safe Empowerment System for Social Anxiety? Visit quietbegins.com. It's not just for social anxiety anymore. Life presents the toughest challenges. Every day you are faced with decisions that test your ability to express who you really want to be in this world. We're told to keep saying affirmations and keep thinking positively, but what do you do when that stuff doesn't work? Welcome to the Overwhelmed Brain, where you'll learn to make decisions that are right for you so that you can create the life you want now. Hey, welcome to the show. This is Paul Coliani, and I'm here to help you increase your emotional intelligence so that you can avoid dysfunction, handle toxic situations with grace and ease, and show up as your authentic self. Everything I talk about on this show is my personal opinion and is meant for informational and educational purposes only. Always consult a medical or a psychological professional before making any changes that could affect your physical or mental health. All right, this is sort of a tough love episode, and I'm prefacing it with this so that you don't think I'm a jerk or not understanding your situation or discompassionate or unempathetic. I want you to know that I really, really support your path to happiness. I really want you to find the most fulfilling life and be on the journey that gives you the most satisfaction, gives you the most peace and comfort and ease, if you want that. I want what you want for your life. And I say this because, again, I'm going to be a little tough on certain people today. Maybe it's not you. And if it's not you, you can maybe just get these as reminders when I go through what I'm going to talk about today. But if it is you, and let's just say that this is your first time listening, I don't want you to think I'm a jerk. So I'm having this conversation with you, sort of one-sided conversation, that lets you know that I'm doing this because I actually do care. I actually want you to have an amazing life. And so the people that know me will go, oh yeah, that's his style. That's what he does. The people that don't, or are just getting used to me, I share everything I go through or have been through on this show. So those who've been listening know a lot of my history and what I've learned and what I've healed through. And what I talk about here is a lot of firsthand experience. If I don't have firsthand experience, then I do my best to try it on. I experiment. I try the experiential process of, hey, if I was in that situation, how would I feel? What would I do? What would I say if I was in that situation? Who would I become? What fears would arise? I think that's one of the keys to empathy, is trying it on, putting on the shoes of someone else and placing yourself in their state of mind so that you can understand a little bit more about what they're going through. And so when I share what I call the tough love principles of living a life without giving away your power, I do it from a place of compassion and empathy. At least I try. I can't say I'm perfect at this. I'm going to do my best to help relate to you. So I'm going to start. Let's start with something that one of the first few words that came out of my brain when I was thinking about this episode was the phrase, don't be naive. Don't be naive. It's easy to say, hard to do sometimes. It depends on the situation. But there are circumstances that come up in our life, and this is one of the first principles, where we can actually show up as naive over and over and over again. And if you're one of these people that say, well, I'm just gullible, I'm always naive, I'm always falling for this stuff, stop it. I know it's not easy, and I'm trying not to sound rude or inconsiderate, but what I mean by this, and I'm going to tell you how here, what I mean by this is when there's a question that comes up in your mind of, would he do that again? Would she do that again? Is he lying again? Is she lying again? When these questions come up in your mind, am I being duped? I want you to listen to those questions. I want you to really take them into your gut and experience them for real. Try not to be dismissive. Try not to go into denial. Try to experience them and process them in the moment instead of hoping and wanting something to be different. An example is an email that I got, and the person who wrote this email, thank you so much for sharing. I'm not making fun. I'm not putting you down. I just want to give you some tough love because I don't want you in a bad situation. This person wrote a few things about her ex-partner, and one of the things that she said was that he lied to me about drinking and gambling and doing drugs, and he was sorry that he lied to me, and he wanted to get help. And he did. And he spoke to someone, but, it wasn't enough because he then stopped his sessions. And then she said, I want to be happy, and I want to feel loved and supported, and I hope that things will change. He's so used to me running back to him because he uses words to convince me, but I think I need to stop talking to him. Yes, you do need to stop talking to him. Here comes the tough love. I'm going to call you Jane. Jane, you need to stop talking to him. Now, how can I say this? How do I know this is true? What if he is changing? These are all the questions that come up, and you're absolutely right. There could be changes in him. But here's the thing. What are you basing your thoughts, your inner commentary on? Are you basing it on that he's just nice? That when he shows up as a nice person, he is a nice person? Are you basing it on how you want to feel, so you see things that maybe aren't really there? Or how about this? Are you basing your thoughts, your question of if he's changing or if he's going to change, are you basing that on him having a sudden realization that he's hurting you, or he shouldn't be doing these immoral maybe or unethical maybe according to your values, and therefore he is becoming enlightened and will suddenly change? This could be true. I mean, there's probably a tiny percentage of people out there that will reach this level of enlightenment and go, geez, I probably shouldn't be doing this anymore. I don't want to hurt her. I don't want to hurt him. I don't want to hurt myself. When they say that, I want to stop hurting myself, that's usually when real change happens, when real enlightenment comes. But if that's not in him, and we don't know what's in him right now, but if that's not in him, you have to assume that he's not changing. Now, I don't like the word assume because that doesn't always help us make decisions, but it can. Like, I assume he's changing, so I'll go back. Or I'll assume he's not changing, so I won't go back. There's like a 95% probability that your assumption will help you make the decision that you need to make. But I like to get into a space of, you know what? I know this for sure. I know this for sure. I'm not going to assume anything. I'm going to know it. And when I know it, now I can make my decision. And this is kind of the underlying point of this episode. I need you to know something for sure and make a decision based on that. And if you have two choices in front of you, and one choice has a certain percentage, a certain weight to it, like I am 90% sure this is going on, but I'm 10% sure about this, this other thing. It could be this decision that's only 10% in value and weight or whatever, and it could be this other decision that's 90%. I like to add the percentage where the heaviest weight lies. This is probably a bad analogy, but you get it. You have these two decisions. One seems to be more true than the other, so make it 100%. So if you're 90% sure that he's going to continue lying about this stuff and you're only 10% sure that he'll never lie again, and it's probably not that high, then what I want you to do is fill the rest of that 90% in, because that is the heaviest decision. That is the decision with the most weight attached to it, the most truth inside of you. And so fill it in, fill in the gap. 10 more percent. Now it's 100%. Now you can tell yourself, I know he will lie again. I know he will take drugs again, in this case with Jane. I know he will gamble again. I know it. And if he cheated on you, I know he'll cheat again. And if he's been hurtful to you in the past, say, I know he'll be hurtful again. Now you make your decision. Now you tell yourself, this is how it is. I need to make a decision from here. because you end your email to me, Jane, with the question, any advice on how to move away from this toxic relationship? Do you know what might be running through his head with no communication because you haven't been communicating with him? He's your ex and you're wondering about going back. There's no specific advice I can give you, and there's no specific advice that you really need when you weigh a decision at 100%. This is why it's important to fill in the gap. Fill in that gap of that decision. If I'm 75% sure, that's 100%. If I'm 75% sure that this is how it is, it's 100%. If I'm 51% sure that this is how it is, it's 100%. You need to go with that. And the reason is because either you're in stagnation, always wondering, always hoping, always waiting, or you're moving forward. When you're in stagnation, you're like a dog tied to a stake and he's just running around, making that path, making that rut, gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And I'll exaggerate a little bit, where he digs himself a trench and pretty soon he can't see over the walls. He's just in this deep trench. This happens. You get into relationships or situations where you dig this rut over and over and over again, waiting for someone or something to change, because you're hoping and you're wanting it to change. And there's a little bit of denial in there, or a lot of denial, that perhaps he or she will learn something new or have some empathy along the way, and then they'll change even though you've never seen it. Or if you do see it, it's short-lived and you're right back in the same situation. So I come back to my first statement here, which is don't be naive. Add that weight to the rest of that decision and make the decision. But Paul, what if I'm wrong? What if this turns out to be the best thing that ever happened to me? What if this is the greatest relationship just waiting to happen because he finally learns? Or whatever situation you're dealing with. What if this turns out to be the best job? What if my boss changes his or her mind and suddenly I'm moved forward in the company? And what if so-and-so suddenly has a change of heart? What if this? What if that? All those what ifs, that's what keeps us waiting for life to happen to us instead of making life happen for us, instead of doing things for ourselves and taking control, taking the reins of our life, and not waiting for other people to show up and save us. A little tough love, sorry. But I want to convey this because if you're on the fence with something, it's time to jump off the fence. It's time to make the decision. It's time. But it doesn't all line up. And it's true. You could have a decision in life that doesn't all line up yet. Like if I jump the fence now, then I might not win either way. Yes, this may not work for every single decision, but think about the ones that have lasted longer than they should have. It might be time to jump into the abyss and find out what happens. That's scary. What if I'm wrong? What if what I say is absolutely wrong and they could change or the situation could get better? Here's what I do with that. I say, when you finally take a step in the direction that's right for you, things will change. And just because you move away from something doesn't mean it's gone forever. Just because you get away from that person, get away from that job, get out of this situation, move from that state or city or country, just because you're taking a step forward, which is always good, doesn't mean you're going to have no ability to come back. The thing is, you need to plant the seeds of forward momentum in order to go anywhere. This is why it's so vital to fill in the gap, make the decision, move forward, because if something, and I'm going to speak a little spiritually here right now, if something is meant to be, it's going to happen. As soon as you make the decision to leave that toxic person and you finally say, you know what, he or she is never going to change. Never. You get clear in your heart, but I don't know if I believe that. Doesn't matter. Make the decision based on that. Get clear and then move forward. Then you'll see change. Then you'll see what you need to see in order to make a better life for yourself. We usually jump back into fear. We usually jump back into, I'll never have anything like this again. I'll never have this opportunity. I'll never have this person. And that fear is what keeps that rut getting deeper and deeper and deeper. It's a lack mentality. It's where we put ourselves when we believe that we aren't capable of more, that we aren't worthy of more, that we aren't valuable, that we aren't important. You are. You are definitely worthy and valuable and important. The thing is, you surround yourself with people or things or situations or environments that make you feel less than that. And when you're surrounded by all of these variables that make you feel less than what you really are, you stay in that mindset and you can never move out of it. I mean, you can by doing stuff like this, but you feel very stuck. And the longer that indecision goes on, the more power you lose. You lose your power. And when that's gone, or at least diminished heavily, it's so much harder to make decisions. We're going to get into that when we come back. And there's a lot more I want to dive into. I wrote some of these principles down that I'm going to tough love into you. If you already know this stuff, they're just reminders. If you don't know this stuff or you're not implementing this stuff, this is my loving push for you to do so. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. I'm going to reiterate the don't be naive comment because it is so helpful to you and so healthy for you to remember a person's past and look at it as a guide to the future. Now, that doesn't mean what somebody else has done is unforgivable and they should never be forgiven, or unforgettable and it should never be forgotten. I'm not saying that. I look at trends. I look at, hey, this person lied to me before. I'm going to put that in my notepad, my mental scratch pad in my head. So if he lies again or if she lies again, I can reinforce in my head who that person is. Or maybe they won't lie again. They had a bad day. They had some fear and felt like lying was the better choice. And so, I'll keep my mind open from that point on. That might be what I do. And if they never lie again and it was just that one moment, great. Maybe I'll have a better opinion, a better feeling about them. But if they lie again, now we have a trend. Now we have a pattern. Now I can look back and go, okay, this person has no problem lying to me. That means I know how they treat me. Doesn't mean they're a bad person. They could still be in their fears. They could still be in their dysfunction. But now I know how I show up in their life and how they treat me. So I'm not going to diminish me. I'm not going to devalue me because of how they treat me. I'm just going to be less vulnerable, less authentic around them. Because when I'm around good, healthy, honest people, I love being vulnerable. I love being truthful. I love being myself. I can share everything I am, knowing that I won't be attacked, that I won't be conned, I won't be duped, I won't be scammed. I can be myself. So I might be able to tell this person all my weaknesses without fear. But if someone is treating me in a way that they can't value who I am because they are, and I'm just using lying as an example, they are lying to me, they're mistreating me, they're behaving badly, then I am going to show up less authentic to them because I don't want to be. I don't want to get duped. I don't want to get down to that level because it will diminish how I feel. So I'm going to be a little guarded. We all do this. We all put up the emotional armor so that we're not hurt, so that we're not conned, so that we're not scammed by certain people in our life. And it's protective. And we know that, okay, we're not going to let this person in any closer. And we won't be able to love them as much as we maybe want to. We won't be able to be their friend or their partner or their family member, relative. We won't be able to do all the things that we would like to do because they're not showing up in a way that is respectful to us, that is in alignment with our character, with our integrity. And when you have people like this in your life, I believe that's a healthy thing to do. You put up the guard and you realize, okay, I can't be totally vulnerable around that person, so I'm not going to be. The problem is when we get into relationships and we've already developed a deep attachment for someone, a deep affinity, and we are connected, and then we find out the pattern. How do we break out of that? Oh, I love you so much, I want you in my life, but you're a liar, but you're a cheater, but you're a con artist. How do we break out of that? Well, I'm going to talk about that in a moment. It's part of the tough love principles of living a life without giving away your power. So I'm going to go through some of these right now, and I'll do my best to be tough but loving. One of them is, or the first one is, I already said, don't be naive. So just as a reminder, just tell yourself that. Don't be naive. Give yourself that command. So if there's a trend or a pattern that has happened and you find yourself wanting and hoping if things would be different and you're in some sort of denial, remind yourself, don't be naive. Fill in that last few percentage points of your decision and make it 100%. Wow, I'm 90% sure this person's a liar. No, just make it 100% and move forward. Take a step forward. You're not going to be able to change them anyway. They may change when they see you leaving, when they see you parting ways with them or distancing yourself from them, and they may think, hey, why are you distancing yourself? They may ask you questions. And that's another conversation, another episode, but what you're doing is taking care of yourself. You're not letting yourself get hurt. You're not putting yourself in these situations where you enable someone's bad behavior to hurt you or diminish or devalue you. You don't allow it. And you can say that. I don't allow that for myself. You can say it to yourself. I don't allow that in my life. I don't allow myself to be around people that devalue me, that devalue my worth. Because I'm worth more than that. Add some ego into this mix. I'm worth more than that. I really am. It's healthy to be selfish when your goal is to better yourself and to be around people that you support and they support you. You can be selfish and selfless. You can be compassionate and empathetic, all at the same time of having a good, healthy ego that says, you know what, I'm pretty darn good and I don't deserve this treatment. So I'm going to distance myself from this toxic environment, this toxic person. It can be very helpful to do that. And you start getting your power back. That's a step towards your power instead of giving up your power. So don't be naive. The next one is, don't spend any time trying to convince people to like you. When someone doesn't like you, don't spend any time trying to get them to like you. Just invest in yourself and be who you are, because they're going to decide if they like you or not. As soon as you try to get someone to see a different side of you or see that you're not all bad or you're not what they think you are, you start losing your power. I mean, you can feel it. You could probably hear me say this and picture it in your head of you doing something to try to get someone to like you. I don't know if maybe it's not you, maybe it's someone else, or maybe you don't. Maybe you don't think this way, but I know there are people listening right now that are thinking, well, I tried to get this person to like me, and it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of your personal power, and you're giving it away so that someone else will see you as you want to be seen. And this is just trying to fulfill something that might be missing in you if you're trying to get people to like you. Step back from that. You don't want to try to convince anyone of anything. They either like you or they don't. And either one is fine, is perfectly fine. If they like you and you get along and it's great, then you have a friend, you have a lover, you have a relative that you like to spend time with. But if they don't like you, great. That means you don't have to waste any time on them unless you have to, unless there's a business reason to or a family obligation. You might have to spend time with them, but sometimes you just have to take the hit and hope you can get through the hour or the day or the week or the month or the year with this other person and just get through it. And it would be great if they did like you because you could get along better and you can talk about things, but sometimes they don't. So when this happens, you need to invest in yourself. You need to just be the best person you can be. And you just keep showing up that way. And eventually they may see past their own filters and think, hey, you're really not that bad at all. then you can say, well, of course, I think I'm pretty cool. It reminds me of when I was in high school. The jocks didn't like me. I was the long-haired skateboarding kid. The jocks didn't hate me. They just thought I was weird. They didn't really care about being my friend, and some of them were bullies. But I remember over the years, I was in 11th and then 12th grade, and we're all getting ready to, a few months till graduation. And the yearbooks came out, and I had tried to, I was that person, like me, I want you to like me. I spent a lot of time doing that, and I made friends with people that, frankly, I shouldn't have. Frankly, I shouldn't have tried. But I did, and at least we were on a talking basis, and they weren't bullying me anymore, which I guess could be a benefit. If you're being bullied and you're trying to get them to like you, it could stop the bullying. Not talking about that in this episode, but there might be something there. But I remember getting one of the kids that used to make fun of me to sign my yearbook. I thought, hey, I've made peace with these people, sign my yearbook. And I remember his words, they still ring in my head to this day. It's kind of funny. He said, hey, Paul, I used to think you were, I don't know if I can say it on the air, D-I-C-K. I used to think that you were that, but now I think you're pretty cool. That was his quote in my yearbook. So I still have that, and I don't think I've looked at it in many, many years. But it's funny to think how much time I spent trying to get these people to like me when I could have just invested that time into people that already liked me or into myself, invested my time into what was more positive and supporting in my life instead of giving so much of my power away. Because what I really wanted to say to these bully kids that were making my life miserable was, you need to back off. That's what I wanted to say, but I never did. I was too afraid. But I spent all that time trying to get them to like me. Was I really that passive? I don't regret that. I'm just saying it's interesting how that reflects what I'm talking about now, about spending time trying to get people to like you. You end up spending a lot of time and energy invested in people that really don't matter in your life. And I could have been nurturing my relationships with better people. Not saying that they're bad people. These kids have grown up. They have families. They're moms and dads, and that's great. I'm sure they're a lot different now. But back then, that's what I was dealing with. And perhaps I could have dealt with it differently. All right, the next tough love principle of living a life without giving away your power, and this may be hard to digest, is when you've invested all of your time and energy into something but never get a reward, or at least not anymore, maybe time to let it go. This could be a relationship. This could be a job. This could be a project. It could be time to let it go. It could be that time. Yes, but there's so much loss. I was talking to a client about loss. How much will you gain by that loss? When I lost my condo back in late 2009 or something, the mortgage crisis was happening. I owned a condo in Florida, and I ended up going bankrupt because the renter stopped paying, and then they couldn't replace the renter with someone else, and no one could afford to buy a house because the mortgage crisis was happening. And one thing led to another, and my condo ended up in my bankruptcy, and I lost, $180,000, some big number. I didn't really lose it because of the bankruptcy. It covered it, but I did lose it. It was my investment. It was gone. But that condo was a headache for a whole year or two because after I left Florida and moved to California, I had to deal with this property manager that was awful. They were just terrible. They put somebody in there that destroyed the place and then stopped paying. And then they asked me if I could be sympathetic with her position and give her a month or two to pay back rent. And it went on and on. And I do have sympathy, of course, but you destroyed my place and I can't go on forever without receiving money to pay for the mortgage that I'm paying on it. So I eventually had to get her evicted, and that place was trashed. I received the pictures from my realtor, and the renter had left her cat. When she was evicted, she left her cat in this locked unit for days. Luckily, the cat was alive. Luckily, the realtor was kind to animals and took the cat, and I don't know, it might have taken to her shelter, I'm not sure, but at least it wasn't suffering in that house anymore with no food. but I owed all these HOA fees and I owed more and more on the mortgage, and things were stressing me out to the point where, I don't know, I had a headache every day. It was awful. My stomach I had ulcers. It was just terrible, a terrible emotional time. It was very stressful. And then when the bankruptcy arrived and I had to throw it all in the mix, the day after I went bankrupt, my stress disappeared. I had lost almost a couple $100,000 and my stress was gone. And it felt good. And I wondered, wait, I just lost all this money and I'm okay with it? And my answer was yes, because I feel so much better. And so, that was one of the pivotal moments in my life that made me realize when I feel this way, money is not important. Money can take a flying leap and I wouldn't care because I hate feeling this way. And so I prioritized how I felt and the stress levels above money, a higher value than money, because I was holding on so tightly to what I didn't want to lose because of the money. But when that stressor was gone and the good feelings started coming back inside of me, I didn't care about the money. You prioritize what's most important to you, and you realize what you'd rather feel or what you'd rather think. And you start making decisions based on those priorities, what you value most. It's like working for the same company for years and they never, ever offer you a raise. You work harder and harder just to show them that you're worth it. You're worth that raise. You're worth that promotion. But they never give it to you. Or when they do, 30 cents. Something minimal. I mean, that might be a lot to some people listening, but let's just say that you worked there for years and they gave you the minuscule raise and you just feel completely, whatever it is, defeated, drained. And all this time you're stressed at work. You're always highly productive. You're always doing everything and you never see the reward for it. And you may be afraid to let it go because that's your job. That's your week to week paycheck, but you never see the reward. And you always have this feeling inside of you and you hate going to work. Might be time to let it go. But if I let it go, how am I going to pay my bills? That's a different conversation. I understand that completely. It's jumping into the abyss, hoping that there's a landing, hoping that there's a job, hoping that there's an answer. But when you have this feeling day after day after day, what are you doing to yourself? What are you doing to your body? What are you doing to your state of mind? It might be time to let it go. And on the flip side of that, what if I don't want to let it go? What if letting it go is a bad idea? It could be. It could be the worst idea ever, which is why you need to take a step toward what you want. What do I want? I want to be rewarded. I want to be recognized. I want more money. I want, whatever it is. Then you walk into the boss's office and say, this is what I need. I've been here for this many years. I've worked my butt off. I stay late. I come in early, whatever it is for you. And you say, this is what I need. And they may say, absolutely. Or they may say, you're fired. They could go either way. And that's the scary part. But what you're doing is taking care of yourself. You are going after what you deserve because you know you are worthy. You may not know this through and through, or you may be afraid to act on it. But when you really sink that into your psyche, I am worthy, I am important, I am significant, and you act from that place, that's when you do take bigger steps. And they feel like risks. They feel like you're jumping into the black hole. And every time I've done that in my life, not that it's going to work every time for you, but every time I've tested this, it has always worked out. There's always been something around the corner that I had no idea was there because I was so close-minded on anything else but making this particular thing work. And we never see these things around the corner because we're usually so single-focused on what we want to work that we don't put any time or energy into anything else. But when you take that step into the abyss, you find out what's there. You find out what support systems are there, what structures are there to help you through the next stage of life. So yes, it could be time to let something go. All right, the next tough love principle of living a life without giving away your power is Never expect people to empathize with you. You can hope and you can want and you can pray that they'll empathize with you, but don't expect it. They either have empathy or they don't. And when you're in a relationship, when you're in a friendship, or you're connected with anyone in any way, and they don't seem to care what happens to you, or they can't see your side of things, they probably never will. Doesn't mean you can't say, hey, when you do that, this is what happens. This is how I feel. But you don't look for empathy if it's not there. This will free you up so much when you are around people that cannot empathize with you. Not that everyone has to, but when you're trying to convey something and you're trying to get someone to understand and at least sympathize, come to a place of, I see what you're going through. I'm so sorry that's happening to you. They don't even have to say sorry. They just have to maybe understand what you're going through so that they can change their behavior toward you just a little bit. Oh, you had a flat this morning? Oh, sorry that happened. Are you okay now? Did you get to work okay? Did you get to school okay? Whatever it is. Hey, that feels good. Someone's sympathizing with me, maybe even empathizing with me, where they can put themselves in my shoes. Hey, that's great. But if you're around people that say, hey, that's not my problem, too bad. That could be your boss. That could be a coworker. And it may be too bad. There are times when, that's your problem, but, you're here. You're working in the emergency room. You're going to have to leave your problems at home. Let's get to this patient. That could happen. There are jobs like that. There are situations like that. And we can talk about it later. But if you're around someone close to you that cannot empathize with you and they treat you badly, this is where it's important to understand that you cannot change that about them. You cannot change their lack of empathy into empathy. And the reason this is important is because we do spend a lot of time and energy giving away our power to someone who just won't understand and who doesn't want to take the time to understand. And this is going right back to trying to convince somebody to like you. It's the same idea. How am I giving away my power? By trying to help them see my side of things, by trying to make them understand where I am. Because if you spend any time and energy on that, the time and energy you spent is all you can do and all you should do. And it's time to back off and come to the realization that they're not going to understand. They're not going to feel where I am. They're not going to be able to relate to me. And if they are doing bad behavior or being unhealthy or toxic around you, it's time to step back and stop expecting them to be any different. Stop expecting them to feel what you feel, to see what you see. I mean, a good example of this, I hear this from clients a lot, is they'll reach out to me and say, this is in a relationship, for example, I tried to be nicer to him. I washed the dishes. I cleaned the house. I do everything for him or her. And no matter what, he or she doesn't become nicer. In fact, sometimes they're even meaner. I hear that a lot. Not those exact words and not that exact scenario, but the nicer I am, the worse they get. Or they do nothing at all. They don't change at all. They're still the same person that is toxic or hurtful or whatever it is. And that's when I have to do my best to say what you're trying to do is seek empathy from someone who doesn't have it. And so you're wasting your time. And then they ask, well, what does that mean? How do I deal with that? Does that mean I have to break up, get a divorce? In that moment, that thought doesn't matter. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. What I need to happen is for the person to understand that what they're doing to try to get someone to understand, to try to get someone to empathize, isn't working. It will never work. It will never happen. So when you accept this 100% and you realize they'll never understand, your thinking changes. Your thought processes do different things. They change how they see the future. Well, gee, if he or she never empathizes with me, what does that mean? And then your thoughts will go into the future, and you can ask yourself, is this what I want? And then that type of thinking will lead to solutions. Could be therapy, I don't know. Could be talking with that person and trying to figure out if they will ever feel bad for you or ever feel anything for you. They may say they love you, but when they hurt me, they don't seem to care. Something like that might happen. So that's important to understand and get clear, getting to that 100% decision so that you can start thinking differently. This is what moves the needle. This is what helps you take the next step forward and get out of the rut. All right, this next tough love principle of living a life without giving away your power is unless you are seeing progress, there will be no progress. And I've already kind of addressed this, but I'm just reiterating it here. If you're around a person who lies and they keep lying and you wonder if they'll ever stop, they won't. Period. Ever. They will never, ever stop. Do I know this to be 100% true? No. But you have to get clear in your head so that you know the steps to take for yourself. If you're with someone who cheats and they say they'll never cheat again, and then they do it again, you know they will do it again, 100%. Unless you are seeing progress, there will be no progress. And you measure progress by looking at the past and watching the trend line go up and to the right. Like in a business meeting, you see that trend line. Hey, we made a profit this year. Hey, we made more profit this year. Hey, we made more profit this year. And that trend line tells you there's progress. What does that mean in a relationship? Hey, I'm happier. Hey, he or she showed up differently. Hey, he or she was very transparent. Hey, he or she this, he or she that. And then you know the pattern that it's going to continue on, hopefully continue on. The problem is when we have spikes and everything is great and then there's a drop. And then everything's great, and then there's a big drop. And then there's a huge rise, and then a small drop. This can happen in normal relationships, but when you're dealing with very specific things, lying, cheating, dishonoring you, disrespecting you, treating you badly, hurting you, those drops are the important ones. Those drops indicate the trend, not the rises. If there's a rise and no drop, you're in luck. If there's a rise and a drop, the drops you pay attention to. A person who lies over and over again won't stop. A person who cheats over and over again won't stop. A person who abuses you emotionally or physically and has done so in the past more than once won't stop. And it's good to get this in your head so you can make a decision that's right for you. These aren't always truths. I know that. But you can't normally make decisions based on ambiguous information. I mean, if you can, that's great. Then you don't need this episode. But if you can't, and you're stuck in that rut, and you're not sure what to do next because you're not sure if something's going to change, then fill in the gap, then make that belief 100% so that you can make the next step for you. All right, we're running out of time. What I'm going to do is when I come back, I'm going to say some thank yous and some goodbyes, and I'm going to get to the last, what do I have, 2 or 3 principles that I have left, and we'll finish the show then. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll be right back. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Overwhelmed Brain. I want to remind you to head over to quietbegins.com if you want a powerful audio workshop of sorts on cutting through and defeating your anxiety. Get the Safe Empowerment System for Social Anxiety. quietbegins.com. And I want to thank 2 iTunes reviewers. One of them has a handle of Waste of Money App. And Priscilla0620. It makes me wonder what the Waste of Money App handle means. And did they create an app in the iTunes store and it's not worth? I don't know. Hopefully it's a great app if you did. Otherwise, I want to thank both of you for leaving reviews, and anyone that leaves reviews in any of the many players and podcast aggregators out there, CastBox, TuneIn, Podbean, Stitcher. It's hard to keep up, but thank you so much for your reviews. And I also want to thank Pamela. She reviewed the Overwhelmed Brain book at goodreads.com. And I am grateful for your review, Pamela. Thank you so much for that. Yes, The Overwhelmed Brain has a book, in case you didn't know. You can go to theoverwhelmedbrain.com and click on Deeper Learning, and you'll find that book available. It's a physical book. It's also a digital book if you want to read it that way. But remember the days of physical books? I'm coming full circle. I love physical books still, only with certain things. There are certain things I like to read digitally, but physical does have their place. It kind of slows you down and makes you take life a little bit slower in this faster-paced society. So that's a nice thing. Check out the book if you have a chance. I'm also grateful for the supporters of The Overwhelmed Brain. If you go to theoverwhelmedbrain.com/supporters, you'll see a big list of people that have given to the show financially, and that is how we keep going. That is how we keep moving along here. And there's more I'm adding to that list. So if you don't see your name up there, let me know. I want to put you up there. You know, if you've donated or you're part of the Patreon program, I love highlighting you. If you want to become a supporter, go over to patron.theoverwhelmedbrain.com. Bunch of private episodes you've never heard anywhere else, free workbooks, and some 1 to 3 minute videos that I'm throwing up there now just to teach a personal growth lesson and give you time to implement it. You know, because you can watch like a 60-minute video and pretty soon you're not doing anything but watching. I just want to create something that you can watch and go implement right away. That's what I'm doing in the Patreon program. Patron.theoverwhelmedbrain.com. And if you're not familiar with Love and Abuse, that's the other podcast I do. It is for relationships mainly, ones that are experiencing a lot of difficulty, a lot of complexity, emotional abuse, manipulation, control, all of those things, usually romantic relationships. But, you know, there's family, there's coworkers, there's all kinds of relationships that we have in our life. And I address the problems that can come up and the type of behaviors that you need to know about, that you need to have labels for, that you need to understand so that you don't get caught in some of the situations I talked about today. I don't want you to get stuck in a situation that makes you unhappy all the time, every day. Not fun. And plus, it's an educational show, so that even if you're in the greatest relationship ever, it's good to know these little behaviors that we can all do to drive each other and even ourselves crazy. It's the Love and Abuse podcast over at loveandabuse.com. And finally, I want to thank Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com for some of the music transitions in The Overwhelmed Brain. And I told you I had 2 or 3 more of the tough love principles of living a life without giving away your power. This next one is: the first time you are mistreated in any way opens the door for the next time. So the first time that you allow someone to disrespect you, that opens the door for future disrespect. And you either have to address it now when it's happening in the moment, or when it ends up happening as it builds up over the years to the point where you feel completely powerless. So I've given many examples on this show for many years about how I've stood up and honored myself, honored my boundaries, and said things to people that quite frankly scared the hell out of me, because before I would never have said those things to anyone because I was afraid of confrontation. I was afraid of what might happen. I was afraid of the consequences. I was always motivated by my fears instead of doing what was right and healthy for me. And when we can step out of that fear and do what's right for us, regardless of the consequences, and that's a scary place to be, but when you realize how worthy and valuable and important you are, and you don't diminish or devalue yourself, then you have no problem standing up for yourself. It's like seeing a child get beat up by an adult. You want to walk right over there and say, hey, you got to stop beating up this child. Many people will step out of the fear they might have of approaching someone that's beating up a child. I mean, I'm not talking about a smack on the butt in the grocery store. I'm talking about someone really physically abusing a child. Many of us will step out of our fear of getting hurt, of getting hit, and step in between that adult and that child and say, hey, you need to back off, because you know that child is important. You know that child is worthy. You know that child doesn't deserve this. And when you treat yourself like that, when you step into that role for yourself, you change your life. You are your own protector. Not that you have to protect all the time, not that you have to defend all the time. You just step into the role of, this is who I am. This is what I like. This is what I love. And this is what I'll accept and what I won't accept. And if you choose to violate what's important to me, if you choose to disrespect me, mistreat me, or hurt me in any way, I'm going to step up and say, no, you can't do that. And if I can't step up because you're a lot bigger or more dangerous than me, then I'm going to walk away. I'm going to get out of that dangerous situation. That's not always easy. I know that. It's not always possible. I know that too, because sometimes you're in a life-threatening situation. But in general, with most situations that you run into, if you can step into that person, that same person that would stand between a very big, strong adult that was beating up a child, and give yourself the same amount of worth and importance and value as you would give that child in that moment, there's no other way to say it. Your life will change. And even though I'm much better at doing this for myself, it's still scary because there's always a first time. There's a first time with that person. There's a first time in that situation. There's a first time with these particular variables, with these particular family members. These first times haven't been addressed. And so when they come up in our life and we stand up for ourselves for the first time, it is scary, or it can be very scary. And you do it. And when you do it, you feel pretty darn good about yourself. Talk about reinforcing who you already are and what you already are, the value and importance that you bring into the world, the lovable, amazing person that you are. Talk about reinforcing all of that when you say, you need to back off because I deserve better. So what I mean by the first time you are mistreated in any way opens the door for the next time is that when you allow someone to get away with bad behavior, they'll do it again because they received permission. They pushed the boundaries like a new dog. A new dog comes into your life and they'll try different things to find out at what point you get angry. At what point you say, get off the couch or stop biting my shoes, or they just keep doing everything they possibly can. Not that they're specifically looking for you to get angry or specifically trying to tick you off. But if you notice as a dog, I think children do this too. If you notice as a dog grows up from a puppy, they will sneak. They will do things that they know is wrong, hoping that you don't see. And when you're not looking, they'll still do it. They'll do things like that. They'll push boundaries. They'll test boundaries. And this is what people do too. When you're with someone who does this, and they do bad behavior toward you, they disrespect you, they mistreat you, what they're doing is testing your boundaries. And once they push through and they are not held accountable for what they did, you're opening the door for them to do it again and again. And I understand that sometimes you're in a situation where, yeah, I did that in the past, I won't allow it to happen again, but I'm already in deep. I'm already in the deepest place I can be with this person because I let them violate my boundaries over and over and over again. Now what do I do? This is where another principle steps in, and it's not really a tough love principle. It's just a general principle about all of this, is that all of your power is available at the beginning of someone's bad behavior. And what I mean by that is the first time someone does something to you, all of your power is there and your opportunity is there to stand up and say, no, I won't accept that. Or no, you need to treat me differently. I deserve better treatment. And if you don't step into your power in that moment and you let them get away with it once, you lose a bit of your power. And when it happens again and again, when they mistreat you, disrespect you, or whatever they're doing, pushing those boundaries, violating those boundaries, every time they do it, they take a little bit more power away from you. And you let them. And that's the tough love part. I know you don't want them to, but when this happens, you're letting them take your power because you're not standing up for yourself. Again, scary, not easy, and even harder when you're in deep, when it's already been months or years and they've done it over and over again. It does seem a lot harder. However, I'm going to end with this. When you're in deep and you feel completely powerless, it's time to start over. You have to start over from the beginning and wait for the next act of bad behavior and address it then as if it were brand new. That's it. So when this person does whatever they do, you bring it up as if it's brand new. You know what? When you do that, I don't like it. Could you please not do that again? You bring it up as if it's brand new. You forget the past. You cut the entire past out. The past will come up and weaken you because all those memories about what happens next will flood in and keep you from making the right decisions for you. So forget the past, move into the future, and let them know how you want to be treated from this point on. Because today is the new you. You could say that. Today is the new me. If they give you any crap, today is the new me. I won't take it anymore. You know what? I appreciate you. Thank you for sticking through this entire episode, knowing that I'm not yelling at you, knowing that I respect your journey, I respect where you are in life. I am grateful for you. And there's all kinds of things that I usually say here, but I just want to get to the best part right now because I believe it in my heart, 100%, that you are amazing.